It's Ollie here from Ollie Investing. Let's jump in and we'll talk about what we're going to be covering today. So I think what we're covering today is the halving recap. So what's happened before, a bit of a history lesson. So looking at what generally transpires as the halving reaches its climax, when it happens, what happens afterwards. We'll look through some of the charts as part of that. Then we'll move in and take a look into the future. What do I think is coming up for Bitcoin? And lastly, what does a Bitcoin halving mean for alt season? For those of you who don't know what alt season is, it's this parabolic explosion of the lower market cap coins that are not as well invested in as Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's anything that's not Bitcoin and Ethereum, basically, and it generally results in many X's in gains if you've chosen the right coins to invest in. I'll do a separate video on that later. But alt season is what people get really fired up for because there's a load of money to be made there. Okay, so a quick recap. So we've had 4 halvings. The first one in 2012, Bitcoin went from $14 to 1,200, about 85x in terms of gains. And it lasted 12 months from the date that the halving happened. So halving happened and there was generally upward movement for 12 months. Maybe a bit sideways here and there, but largely accumulated in that big gain you see at 1,200. Then in 2016, we had another one. And that happened when the price was at 650, and then it went straight up, well, not straight up, but over a period of time it went to 20,000, and that lasted 18 months. So from the period of halving all the way through to from when the halving happened all the way through to the end of the bull market was 18 months, and it culminated at around 20,000. And then in 2020 we had another one. The halving happened and the price was at 10,000. And that went up to 65 before dropping down, and that was a 6.5x, and again that whole period lasted about 18 months. And then we come to this year, 2024, happened on the 19th of April. I'm really interested in what's going to happen next. So I've actually put 15,000 here. That was the lowest price. The Bitcoin halving, when it happened, the price was actually already at an all-time high. I think it was around 67,000. So just from that one piece of information, we can already see that this halving is very different to the previous ones. We were already at an all-time high when the halving took place, but the lowest point before halving was 15,000. Let's have a look at the history. So generally what happens at halving, so let's look at the first 3 halving events and ignore the new one. So generally halving happens and there's been no new all-time high. It happens generally when the market is very low and is kind of coming off the back of the last bull market. It will hit the halving will happen. Nothing will really happen on that day. Maybe slight movement up, slight movement down, but generally it will go sideways. And then after about 6 months of slow movement up, and we will look at this on the chart shortly, Bitcoin will hit the old all-time high. So we'll retest it again, and we'll look at this on the charts. Once it hits it, it will chop around for a little bit. Then it will break the old all-time high. Then it will retest it, and then we see the big move up. One thing I've noticed when looking at the charts is a cross down on the weekly MACD generally signals the end of the bull run. And again, we'll look at this in the charts. So let's look at the 28th of November, 2012. Halving happened here. You hold for the whole cycle, and then you see that parabolic move. So it hits here. This was the first halving, so there is no previous all-time high for it to test at this point, but it hit a level, and then it pulled back. And then we had that parabolic move up, okay, forming a new all-time high here before coming back down. You can also see here, we talked about the MACD crossover on the weekly, and we're essentially back in the bear market, or heading into a bear market. Now let's look at the 9th of July 2016. So, again, halving happened here. but essentially it culminates in an 18-month cycle, which ends up with a new all-time high being hit. And if we zoom in a little bit lower to that previous all-time high, you can see the retest that we're talking about here. So the halving happened here, and 6 months later, so it hits the all-time high, it bounces off, it then breaks through, it then retests it, and then we see this huge move up. So it always, every time it hits the previous all-time high, there's always this choppy action, this push through, and this retest. And from looking at the previous data, there's always a 6-month period between the halving happening and this kind of retesting period happening here before the move up. And we see the same again in May. So halving happens around here. It takes 6 months to get to this point. So we're looking at the weekly chart here. So there's a lot of action happening here every single day, every hour as we're going through, but each candle represents a week. It hits this previous all-time high. There's some choppy action here. It can't break through. It comes back down. It goes up. It retests it again. So that's a month. And then bam, parabolic move, bit of a retest here, and then straight back up again. You can see all the way through this, the weekly MACD or MACD, whatever you call it, is always positive. So these are just small pullbacks and retests and pumps up before we reach the new all-time high. And again, this section here where you see it kind of cross over and come up, I don't know what triggered that. I could have spent maybe hours researching it, but something must have happened here, maybe some news to push this back down. But from here to here, it lasted 18 months. So in line with the previous cycle. So the 2020 cycle and the 2016 cycle both lasted 18 months. So the key things really that I've taken away from those slides, there's obviously multiple X's after each halving, always less than previous. That's just common sense. The more expensive something is, the less multiples of that you'll get when you're investing. Halving generally triggers the bull run. So halving happens, there might not be an immediate kind of pump up, but it does tend to be the start of more interest coming in for the crypto market and things really starting to trickle upwards, culminating in that new all-time high. It takes 6 months to hit the old all-time high. This is really key when we think about what's happening now. So halving happens. From that point, it takes 6 months for it to hit the old all-time high. Then you've got a couple of months, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks of choppy action, retesting, and then that pump up. Each increase is more extreme and ferocious than the last. So although you're not getting the same X's, the explosion of interest and buy volume seems to be much higher than the previous. And that totally makes sense. Because the longer that something exists for, the more interesting it is, the easier it becomes to buy, and the more people come in. So I'm expecting to see the same thing this time around. This is more conjecture. I don't actually know if this is true or not, but this is my belief. I feel like this cycle is going to be longer. So the first cycle lasted 12 months. The second one was 18 months. The third one was 18 months. And yeah, so I feel like the next one is going to be longer. So let's look at what's happening now. The key thing to take away here is that halving happened here. It happened we reached a new all-time high before halving happened. That's never happened before. So I'm unsure as to what's going to happen. But these are some of the things that I think will take place now that this has happened. So I think institutions entering the market have had a massive impact on Bitcoin. And I think that impact is we've seen us hit halving way earlier than any of us are anticipating. And we're going to look at some of the charts in a minute. And I think we'll see that ETH and the altcoin market are lagging behind Bitcoin. And we'll talk about this as part of alt season. I think Bitcoin is detaching from the rest of the market. So Bitcoin has always been a measure of like how far, if halving happens, we know we're 6 months away from alt season. Bitcoin has always been used as the primary measure of where we are. I personally won't be using Bitcoin as that measure anymore. I think it's too far detached from what's happening in the rest of the market. Now that institutions are in, I can see more market manipulation happening. And I think you've just got completely different investors between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the alt market. So if you've got institutions, so if you think about Forex trading, as retail participants, we are never driving the direction. We are trying to piggyback off the direction that the institutions are driving the market. In crypto, what made it different when it first started is it was all retail investors. We were just there buying, getting excited, the market was going up. That's not the case now. We've got these big, powerful institutions with billions of pounds backing them, all buying and selling Bitcoin. So I think we'll see more market manipulation and a change in the trends that we see. Saying that, I believe, these are all my own opinions, so feel free to disagree, leave me some thoughts in the comments. I think we'll see Bitcoin before the US election happens later on this year. I think we'll see it hit 100k. That's just my belief based on what I'm seeing on the charts. I think the ETF has launched. The big banks are not going to let Bitcoin just stagnate for the next 6 months and consolidate. They're going to push it up, or else it's not going to look very good. Bitcoin, I think, could hit 200k before the end of this bull run. Again, I think it's maybe even higher. I think institutions, there's so much money coming into Bitcoin now. I think the price will hit 200k. Is again my personal view. I think there's two things that are going to happen here, and I think I've made it quite clear which one I think. But either Bitcoin is going to stall and the rest of the market will catch up, or it continues up and it completely detaches from Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to stall. I think we're going to see Bitcoin move, but I think we're going to see a lot of disappointed people who think, oh, Bitcoin's going up, therefore alt season and Ethereum is about to pump. I don't think it's going to. I think we're going to see Bitcoin completely detached from the rest of the crypto market, fly up and just do its own thing. And looking at where Bitcoin is and where the rest of the market is will just have very low correlation. Okay, so let's talk about alt season. This is what a lot of people are excited for. It's where the big gains come. You know, you're not talking about 3x or 5x. You know, some people make hundreds of x's here, sometimes thousands if you're in the right coins. So first of all, let's just recap on the previous market. So we can see here for Bitcoin, you can see that it retested the previous all-time high in November. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. Okay, November, followed by a retest in December, followed by a parabolic move up. Ethereum, slightly different, but they all follow a similar market trend. This is what I was saying earlier. They're all the same, just with different money invested. So Ethereum, less popular than Bitcoin. It's the second most popular crypto. That retested its previous all-time high in January. So it's about a month or two behind. And it retested again towards the end of January. So it all happened in January. Hit it, retested it in the same month, and then we went for that parabolic move up. So a month to 2 months behind Bitcoin. And then we've got Total 3, which is your true altcoin market. And you can see here there wasn't really much of resistance here. Maybe if you take it up to the wick. But again, it kind of breaks through and tests it in February. So a month behind Ethereum. Retests it again in the same month. And then bam, we go straight up to these all new time highs. So generally, when Bitcoin hits the old all-time high, Ethereum and the altcoins are not too far behind. We're seeing something different this time. So Bitcoin is already it's already way above the previous all-time high, or just above it, and I think it's going to go higher. We've got, let's say, 6 weeks until Ethereum is meant to catch up. I mean, Ethereum is nowhere near the top You've got, I mean, there'd have to be, where were we, 380 billion investment. We need to almost double the amount of money that's invested in Ethereum to even reach the all-time high. Never mind, take it to the next level. So I don't think we're going to see the same thing this year. I don't think alt season is anywhere near coming. And it's the same for Total 3. If we look at the previous all-time high, it's here. Oh, but I can only have 2 sessions. But it's here. Again, you need almost 100% more investment in the altcoin market in general to push it up to this level. Never mind the parabolic move that runs after it. So I hope that makes sense. I'm totally happy to answer any questions. I've put my Twitter in the comments of this, so you guys can message me if you've got any questions. But I would say, from a Bitcoin perspective, thinking about what we're seeing here and what we talked about with the market detaching, I think the Ethereum pump and the altcoin season could be maybe 9 months away, maybe 8 months away. And I think that's because Bitcoin is 6 months ahead of where it should be. It shouldn't have been anywhere near the previous all-time high when it halved based on previous cycles. So if Bitcoin is 6 months ahead, I would argue that the alt season is 6 months away, at least, before anything even starts to happen. So before ETH starts to rally, which means I wouldn't be expecting any kind of alt season for at least another 8 months. And that's good. Good and bad. So it's bad because I don't think anyone's going to see the parabolic gains, maybe a 5x, a 10x over the course of the next few months. But I don't think we're going to see those really big moves happening until kind of October, November this year. Maybe Christmas, maybe even January next year. So I think there's a long time left before anything happens. The good news is it means we're not too late. I keep seeing loads of tweets and messages. Oh my God, you've got to get in now. Alt season's coming. It's going to moon. You've missed it. You're going to miss out on generational wealth. You are not. You are still way early, in my opinion. There is still time to buy if you're interested in altcoins. I think there's a long time left. Also, interestingly, I'm really intrigued as to how this week is going to play out, because I mentioned that when the MACD crosses over, it generally signals the end of the bull market. The bull market hasn't started yet, in my opinion, or it's just starting to now, if we exclude Bitcoin. I wonder if we'll see a slight pull down into red and maybe a retest of these lower levels down here before we start to see that gain. Mainly to attract new people to come in and push the market back up. So, alt season. Let's recap. So, Bitcoin falsely rallying and raising the expectation that alt season is close. I don't believe it is. ETH needs to pump first, then the alts will come. ETH generally pumps 1 to 2 months after Bitcoin touches the old all-time high. Alt season usually happens 2 to 3 months after Bitcoin pushes past the old all-time high and reaches a new one. Bitcoin is 6 months ahead of time from the rest of the market, happened before halving. I therefore think alt season is 9 months away. So do with that information as you will. I will personally be buying up any good altcoins that I find on any dips and holding the existing ones that I've got until that period happens. Make sure you do your own research. That's always really important. You've got to have conviction in the projects that you're buying. I'll be trying to post kind of weekly videos. I hope you found this useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great week, everyone.